Welcome to the show. It's fair to say it's all kicking off. Since the Labour Party yesterday denied there'll be the opportunity for a full national inquiry into the scandal that gripped Oldham. Elon Musk has got involved. Nigel Farage has got involved. Kemi Badenoch has got involved. Everybody is saying this simply isn't good enough. Well, today I'll be joined by a council whistleblower who said that when he tried to raise red flags, it was he who found himself on the receiving end of an investigation. And later in the show, I'll be joined by an inspiring single mum from Cornwall, never been involved in politics in her life, so moved by what's going on, so outraged by the political ineptitude to deal with it. She wants to organise a 1 million women march to London. And hey, let's get a few blokes along while we're at it, to show the country we've simply had enough of the politicians, of the councillors, of the media, of the entire establishment burying its head in the sand about this issue, which is Britain's shame. Get in touch, tubnews.com/your say. And Kemi Badenoch has demanded that the government launches an immediate inquiry into child exploitation in Britain, despite not doing that for 14 years in power. And this comes as Sir Keir Starmer is attacked over his handling of the Oldham grooming gang scandal when he was head of the Crown Prosecution Service, with Labour blocking an inquiry into his conduct at the time. Well, it's now emerged that Conservatives also rejected a national inquiry into grooming gangs back in 2022 when they were in government. Let's get more on this now with our national reporter, Charlie Peters, the reporter really who's got this story rolling around the world again. Charlie, it just has absolutely kicked off. Yesterday was busy. Today makes that pale in comparison. Elon Musk getting involved, calling this the worst mass crime against the British people ever, calling for people to be put in jail in British politics. This will not go away. And by Jove, Charlie, you've caused one hell of a furore.
Yeah, it's not every day you break a news line and the richest man in the world shares it, but that's exactly what's happened, and it has gone around like wildfire, as you say, Martin. And this latest development in the last couple of hours from Wes Streeting, the health secretary, he's saying that Elon Musk's comments have been misjudged and misinformed. He didn't specify which comments, but I imagine it's his stark criticism of Jess Phillips, the safeguarding minister, after we revealed that she had rejected, after a almost 4-month delay, a request from Oldham Council for a government-led inquiry. But Wes Streeting has said today that he is going to be working with the government to implement the recommendations of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. And that's in response, of course, to Kemi Badenoch coming out on the back of our exclusive story, saying that we need not just a review into Oldham, but a review around the entire country. But speaking to survivors, Martin, they always say the same thing to me. The ICSA report was not sufficient, okay? It mentioned Rotherham just once in 400 pages. It was tasked with looking at the grooming gang scandal, but it just did not go to towns and cities where there have been credible reports of this abuse going on. At GB News, we've compiled at least 50 different towns and cities where there have been successful prosecutions or indeed compelling testimony that we've seen to lead us to believe this sort of abuse has been going on for some time. And the independent inquiry just didn't go there. That was commissioned by the Conservatives, but many survivors believe that that inquiry just lost sight of its actual mission. It went astray. It didn't achieve what's needed. And so, unfortunately, there are now these new calls for a fresh inquiry to make up for what was missed before. So Labour really aren't really escaping this row. It's going on. This is now day 3 of people focusing on this grooming gang scandal. The lid has well and truly blown off this story, having also throughout history just been what one journalist I've seen describing it as a conspiracy of murmuring. People have always spoken about it, but just not quite accurately, just not quite loud enough, and allowed the story and the crisis to roll on. But I do feel now, Martin, that after years of coverage, something has changed. The dam has well and truly burst. And I think that people in power and in the opposition from all sorts of parties know that this is not going away.
Charlie Peters, I think you're absolutely right. And it's extraordinary that it's taken a foreign national, Elon Musk, to really kind of put the cat amongst the pigeons by getting involved like this. Some people are criticising him for doing that. But look, we're having this conversation again. I myself was retweeted by Musk earlier. Strange thing to happen, because I just pointed out that an Oldham safeguarding officer, you know this story very, very well, Shabir Ahmed, He was actually jailed for 22 years for being a ringleader of a Rochdale rape gang. He was employed as a welfare rights officer by Oldham Council. He was on the payroll of this council, Charlie Peters, and that surely begs the question, how on earth could Oldham Council ever be trusted to mark its own homework when paedophiles were on the payroll? Surely that says we definitely must have a full, external, independent national inquiry that's politically neutral.
Yeah, well, that's precisely what the survivors in the town are saying. They just don't believe in the council to do the job. And that's why the council made that request directly to the Home Office, with Jess Phillips, of course, as we revealed, saying no. She said she understood the strength of feeling, but she believed it was up to Oldham to do its job. Now, I understand that Oldham Council will now reach out to Telford to try and understand how they did their report and repeat that process. But many survivors concerned that even with this amount of attention, it just won't be right again. Now, that appalling situation you just referred to, Martin, Shabir Ahmed, probably one of the most shocking revelations of the national scandal. That was revealed in a report conducted that looked only at 2011 to 2014. When people say there's already been an Oldham report, 3 years just is not sufficient. There are so many more avenues to explore, so many other travesties that need to be exposed. And frankly, as survivors always tell me when I speak to them in Oldham, they say that there are just more people who need to be held accountable. Shabir Ahmed certainly won't be the last.
Charlie Peters, you've been doing God's work this week. I really think you have been, mate. Thank you very, very much. I look forward to seeing you in the next hour. Charlie Peters, always a pleasure to call you a colleague. Thank you very, very much. And let's get some statements here. We've got one from the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, who responded to the Council's request, acknowledging the strength of feeling that a further inquiry into child sexual exploitation in Oldham should be undertaken. In letters to the Council Executive, Phillips apologised for delays in responding but maintained the local authorities should take the lead, saying it is for Oldham Council alone to decide to commission an inquiry into child sexual exploitation locally, rather than for the government to intervene. And she welcomed the Council's resolution to continue its work with victims and survivor. And Councillor Arooj Shah, the leader of Oldham Council, said this: since October, we've been working on setting up that independent inquiry, liaising with Oldham survivors and also Telford Council, which conducted a similar inquiry. The independent inquiry will build on the findings of the Greater Manchester inquiry into non-recent safeguarding issues in Oldham. We're working closely with survivors and survivors' families to ensure that they don't just have a voice, but will have a central role in developing this inquiry. Well, amid the ongoing discussion around grooming gangs and child exploitation, a Conservative councillor in Tameside, that's the neighbouring area to Oldham, released a video of him challenging the council leaders over the figures in 2022. And let's take a listen.
The figures that I have quoted are from a Tameside Council presentation. In that presentation, which some of the members were there, it states on slide 3, which I have already provided to the police, and it says on that slide that in excess of 30 cases of child sexual exploitation take place in Tameside every single quarter. So that means, take that every quarter, that means 120 children each year are victims of CSE. Okay? So, in Oldham where they're currently doing a investigation.
Billington.
No, I am not going to finish. You've allowed that to go on. So in Oldham, they have
Councillor
had
Billington,
502 cases in the last 10 years.
Could Democratic
And in
Services
Tameside,
please
given
stop
those
the
figures,
webcast?
it's over 1,200, more than double. So that's where I got the information.
It's an utterly astonishing situation. That was Tameside Councillor Liam Billington, who was silenced in that meeting back in 2022. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined now by Councillor Liam Billington for the Conservative Party. Thanks for joining us. I just find it incredible that you were actually quoting facts. You're quoting data, and you were pointing out that other data wasn't recorded, such as that along ethnicity, or if it was, it wasn't supplied. And for demanding the truth, you found yourself on the receiving end of a police summary. Tell us more.
Yeah, so I was asked to
well, it all started from doing a tweet. Someone did a tweet about the Oldham inquiry and how the police basically ignore people on CSE or child sexual exploitation. And I quote tweeted that and said, why isn't anyone talking about Tameside? Because the figures are there. The council did a presentation which stated that in excess of 30 children every quarter are victims of CSE. And by doing that tweet, that angered the police to then demand that I go and visit them at the station.
But it was the truth. You were telling the truth. You were using their own data.
Exactly. And they said that they were acting off a anonymous complaint. But to this day, I still do not know who that anonymous complaint was or why they were monitoring my social media accounts. Because, again, there was no crime committed. You know, you look at, is it Alison Pearson from The Telegraph? And she was investigated for a non-hate crime. It very much felt like that, to be honest. And the police were trying to intimidate. But what was happening was actually it was all done in cahoots, because the following week there was a full council meeting. And because a colleague of mine, Councillor Ruth Welsh, wasn't able to come due to a family funeral, we then moved it to the following week. But that hadn't been passed to the Labour councillors. And they announced in the meeting that I was refusing to cooperate with a child grooming investigation, making out as if I was obstructing information about child grooming. So any member of the public watching that would think that I'm involved in child grooming, which is not the case at all. But that is the modus operandi of what GMP do. Because you look at Raja Mir, they put out a headline, man 48 arrested in connection with child grooming case. And it was nothing to do with being arrested for child grooming at all. But that's the thing that they want to put out. If you challenge these Labour councils, they will try and destroy your reputation. Okay, and it might sound like some crank, but this is what's happened.
On that point, and by the way, we have contacted the council for a comment. They haven't got back to us yet. But on that point and others, such as the one I raised earlier about Shabir Ahmed, who was he was a safeguard warden, somebody employed by Oldham Council whose job was meant to be to protect children. Instead, Liam Billington, he ran the Rochdale rape gang. He was sentenced to 22 years in jail for his part on that. He was on the payroll at Oldham Council. With all of this in mind, do you have any faith whatsoever in there being a case for Oldham being allowed to mark its own homework? Why would they shame themselves? Why would they dig this all up? The human nature would be to try and bury the cats, surely. And so with that in mind, surely the only resolution, the only route forward, Liam Billington, is for a full, independent, transparent, apolitical national inquiry into this.
Absolutely. For years, there have been people that have been asking for an independent inquiry. It has always been blocked by Labour. They have never requested one. They've been in control of the council. They've lost control of the council now. The only reason why this request has come about from Oldham Council is because the council is in no overall control. They've lost 3 leaders over this issue. Yeah. There was Councillor Sean Fielding, who called it barefaced lies. He lost his seat. Then Arood Shah, she lost her seat. Then Amanda Chatterton, who said that in a council meeting that grooming didn't destroy the lives of these girls, or words to that effect. And that is reason why they shouldn't be allowed to mark their own homework. It also goes much deeper as well, because you look at the MPs in Oldham. So Angela Rayner, her old constituency boundaries, they covered Oldham. And the minister under her, Jim McMahon, he was leader of Oldham Council. So if there's an inquiry to come out, this is going to be very embarrassing for 2 very senior members of the Labour government. They do not want this information coming out, because I'm telling you now, there is lots more, because there's the likes of Raj Amir, who I believe has only just scratched the surface on this.
OK, we have to leave it there. Thanks very much. And by the way, we're not implying that any of those names mentioned there were involved in this. And we have reached out to Tameside Council for a comment over that council meeting and things that have just been said there. We have not received a response from them yet. But of course, if we get that, we will bring it to you on today's show. Thanks for joining us there. That's Councillor Liam Billington. Thank you very much.